Alright, so this is going to be my last producing for video for a while. And if that's the case, I think it's time we finally tackle producing for Chris Brown. Though, to be honest, I did want to do producing for Usher with his new music coming out and that, but in any case, you tell me who you think will sound better on this full R&B track we're going to produce from scratch: intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and bridge. Output have kindly sponsored this video, making this creation possible, so we're going to be using mostly sounds from Output's Arcade as we build this track, with the usual focus on music theory, chord progression, sound selection, and arrangement, whilst giving you a chance to see what Arcade can do. Arcade is a sampler, a synth, and a loop player with creativity and easy sound manipulation at its center. It's made up of sample kits, each featuring 15 samples across the keyboard, and instrument kits that you can play with a single sound source laid chromatically across the keyboard. These both essentially being your presets, which are grouped together into genre and theme specific groups called lines. So like I said, we're going to be using this to inspire and build our track with a focus on theory, arrangement, sound selection, and mindset. It comes with a 30-day free trial and 50% off your first paid month. And you can grab that deal via the link down in the description below. Cool, let's start with the verse. Inspiration often starts with a single sound source. I've had a browse through a few kits in the downtime line, and this gave me instant Chris Brown vibes. Now, I like what it's doing. The reverse playback on repeat, it sounds dope. But let's save that for the chorus. I have an idea for the verse. For the verse, let's strip it back a little. Lower the frequency on the low pass filter and remove that reverse playback. Now with Arcade, our black keys on the sampler kits are modifiers. These allow us to quickly manipulate the sample we're working with. There's a modifier to change the start point of a sample, one to resequence the slices of a sample to essentially reorder its playback, and we can slice it however we like, and there's one to create repeats as well as reverse parts of our sample. We can also come in and tweak each modifier, and I think each repeat should be a little louder. Better. Now, as well as sampler kits, Arcade also has instrument kits, and I found a nice pad called Swamp Cycles. This is a beautiful sound that sits well underneath what we already have. However, if you're looking to use this sound, I did make a couple slight adjustments. First, by applying some of this rubberized macros being another way to quickly transform our sound, coupling multiple effects together into a single slider, which if we come in we can see is adding a nice blend of chorus and delay. And I've also changed it by removing one of its layers for a cleaner sound, one that wouldn't clash with our first sound. It's really important that each sound complements the next, and as we're building our track, we need to be conscious of that. Even if you're not big on synthesis like myself, it's still important to understand the basics to help make space when needed. Sometimes there's a rhythmic layer in the sound or a noise layer or particle layer that's going to mask the more important sounds that we need to remove. This is a very simple interface, and thankfully in this scenario it was as simple as turning off a layer, as it wasn't actually adding any tonal value and doesn't work with my vision. But everything else sounds perfect, and perfect for our classic R&B chord progression that we've laid down. If you can, name a song that uses this chord progression down in the comment section below. We're starting on the 4, always a good place to start for this type of R&B. And we're just moving up the scale. 5, 6, 7, 1, and then 3 to seamlessly get back to the 4. Choose your own voicings. I have a wealth of videos that will help you do so, and I may actually write down the chords I've used specifically in the description below, so be sure to check that out too. This is what I have for the drums. It's cool, but whilst I was still in the Lucky Star kit, I found this drum loop loaded on the very first key. Now this is not really my style, but the first part, just as I was fooling around with the kit, I heard it on top of what I already had laid down, and layered up, I thought it sounded dope. You see what I mean? Before we add our bass, let's jump to the chorus. It's okay to jump around if you get stuck. Sometimes switching focus helps. And I feel like that's what I need right now. Like I mentioned, I already planned to use the first sound in its original state, albeit with a little filtering. I actually forgot to mention, however, I'm in the key of A major or F sharp minor, depending on how you like to swing it. But each of the samples in Arcade are locked or can be locked to the key and tempo you've selected. So when I play a guitar sample like this, it's always going to play the major third and vibe perfectly, no matter the key that I'm in. And as opposed to the synth that I removed the noise layer on, this sound, even though it's rhythmic, it has the same rhythm as the first sound. So it actually reinforces and allows for a bigger chorus without making it too busy. Moving on, I've also laid an extra pad from Polymax to flesh it out a little. No changes here to the chord progression. Sometimes you can add inversions, which adds a new dimension to the chord progression and can also make the whole chorus or chord progression sound a bit larger too, but today I've just left it the same. Finally, let's add some bass. Now remember, this is if I, Stefan Guy, produced for Chris Brown or Usher. None really have that type of bouncy bass line in their tracks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a producer is always going to bring their sound to the table if given the chance. Think about when Usher worked with the Neptunes, a total different sound. Jermaine Dupri, another sound again, and I'm all about that bouncy bass line. Switching back to the verse, we're going to have the same approach for the bass, just simplified. For the pre-chorus, however, and a way for the chorus to sound even bigger and more lively, we're going to simplify the bass even more. I've turned up the sustain on the bass, and we're going to run long held notes here instead of short ones, like in the verse and chorus. And I've also dropped out the kick. This gives us a lull or a low point in our track, a more tame point with a bit less energy, so that when the chorus comes in, it sounds even bigger. Right, let's do a quick bridge, and I mean quick. I'm going to keep this one simple with a pad chord progression over the verse motif, and we'll call it a day for now. Four, 5, sharp 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 1, 7, 3. Pay attention to that last chord or the last leading note on the bass. This seamlessly gets us back to the chorus. For the final touches, let's jump back into Arcade to find some transitions. So as well as the sampler and instrument kits, we also have access to the individual samples that make up these kits. So we could just as well search for transition samples here and build our own kit, and even throw in some third-party samples if we wanted to. But today we're moving fast, so let's work with what we've already got, which is plentiful. Sweet, so I'll add these to the end of each section, and once I've done that, we've got a good foundation for a singer to write to. And after that, this is when I'd come in and tweak the arrangement, add a bit of ear candy or some more ear candy and other elements to complement the vocal. And Arcade gives us a ton of high quality samples that are constantly updated to help us do that. This was also my first time using Arcade in a production, and whilst filming at that, so of course I'm just scratching the surface, but let me know what you think of this beat down below. And remember, you can trial Arcade by output for free for 30 days and with 50% off your first paid month. If you want to see how you can produce for an artist like her, check out this video here. I've been Stefan, and as always, happy beat making.